for Mike Lane. Oh, yeah. Round of applause, y'all. Yeah. How you doing, Mike? Good morning.
Good, good. Are we a little early here? Or are we okay?
A little early. You know, we could, chop it up maybe like 2 minutes early, but I think we're okay.
Okay.
You know.
Anyways,
we can wait for people to trickle in. Yeah.
Yeah.
But how you doing, man?
Good, good. You've been doing some good hosting, emceeing there. Great stuff.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much, man. Yeah, it's fun. I enjoy doing this.
Yeah, it takes a certain type of personality to get to do that and be as creative. So yeah, hats off to you. Not an easy gig.
Thank you. Yes. Blessed to be able for that to be one of my revenue streams. As you mentioned, multiple revenue streams. Hosting has been somewhat lucrative for me. So yes, it's a blessing.
Right. Yeah, great. So I can go anytime you're ready. So
all right. How's everybody doing? Maybe we should I'll just message in the chat to let people know that you're up.
Go ahead and message it. We'll give it another couple of minutes.
Yeah, if everybody can message, let's get everybody up in here. Micah Lane up now. Yeah, let's go. I see Anthony typing too. Thank you, Anthony, for being on top of it. Yes.
You beat me to it.
Oh, it's okay. 2 is better than 1.
Exactly.
Doubling up on it.
Yeah, we're doubling down. We have
the team here. I like it.
Yeah, teamwork.
Oh, very cool.
Well, yeah, everybody give it up once again, Mike Lane.
That's great. Yeah. Hello, everybody. I'm actually in Bali at the moment, so it's a little late here. So hopefully I can stay awake. No, just kidding. Yeah. So a little background on me. I don't know what touched on some of the things, but basically I've been in the music business for several decades and has seen the big change, seen many changes. And one of the things that it's important to understand is that there's always been a situation where independent new artists need to find revenue streams until they become artists that can sustain their livelihood through large record sales at the time, way back when, to touring and so forth. So this has always been an issue of how to sustain a band, your career. It's always been an issue. And now what's happening is that because we have so many artists that can now participate because of the enabling by the internet, it's even getting more and more competitive. And so there's less fans to share, or there's more fans, but there's less to group together like there used to be, when there used to be just so many channels that you could go through when the labels controlled everything. Radio, only so many radio stations controlled things, and now we have this whole big internet and everybody has a platform, and that's great, but that's also a problem. One of the things that I've done since I started in the business was actually find alternative revenue streams for the businesses that I was working in. And I would work at a company, music companies, and I would look at it and say, what are we doing right now, and where is there another revenue stream to basically find new sources for the company to sustain that company. And so I would look at the company, and I'd look at that, the company, and I'd say, okay, what's already coming in that we don't have to, it won't cost us anything to keep doing what we're doing. And that's always very important, is to first look at some revenue streams that you don't have to reinvest or invest any more money or go into a different direction. Look at exactly what you are already doing. And the thing is that the pandemic kind of highlighted the fact that there definitely has to be alternative and additional revenue streams for musicians. I had clients, several clients who we had set up tours, European tours, national US tours that we had to cancel. And I remember in March of 2020, I read the report from the Imperial College of the UK that said, that did the computer modeling for this pandemic. And it said, Armageddon for artists on tour. Basically, that's what it said to me. And so I called all of my clients, and not only just the artists, but also other clients that had things that would be affected. And I said, we got to find alternative revenue streams for you for the next year and a half, because the computer modeling says that this is going to be at least a year and a half problem for touring. And they were going like, what are you talking about? Because this is March 2020. And I said, trust me, you will not be doing your summer or your fall tour. And that's exactly what happened. So we were, so we were prepared. So my clients actually were able to generate revenue during the pandemic because we were prepared for the the tours being canceled. And so some of the things that we did, and these are things that have been done for a long time, but you have to think a little bit harder about it these days, because trying to sell music is very difficult. As we all know, everything's gone to streaming. So that now, where tours used to support CD sales or music sales, now the music and the streaming supports the touring industry. So it's kind of flipped. And then what happens when you can't sell CDs, can't sell digital music, streaming's not going to pay for anything, and now you can't go on tour. So what do, especially if you're an independent musician? Some of the larger bands, of course, can take a year off and they'll survive just fine. But when you're, we had bands that are like independent, under the radar bands, and they depended on going out and making an income by traveling across the country or internationally and generating revenue. So one of the things that we looked at is, what else can these musicians do? Well, one is to go to your fan base, because most of these bands have fan bases between 1,500 and 15,000 fans, and to create special packages for them, whether it's giving out special FaceTime, music lessons, special VIP bundles. I have one artist, a jazz artist. We bundled a vinyl album with, he has actually a wine product that he has on the side. So we said, okay, you get a bottle of wine, you get a vinyl album, and you get a personally autographed piece of sheet music. And we bundled that, priced it higher, very high as a special thing, and we're able to generate revenue. We also set up workshops with the universities that had to be on Zoom. And we were able to actually generate a lot of revenue doing that by doing, lectures and working with musicians, because they were all, sequestered in their homes, and these band leaders, these educators at Juilliard and some of the other music colleges and even the high schools were looking for, how do we keep these kids interested? How do we can't lose a whole year of band practice and learning and so forth. So I put the artists into these kind of lecture circuits. I have other artists that have other skills. I have an artist that actually was in the corporate world, was in the military, and had some other qualifications. And what we would do is we'd couple like a show with a lecture on like diversity, for example, because this particular client was in charge of diversity at their corporation. So we just said, hey, we got this, we're going to do some music, we're going to play it, and then we're going to talk about diversity. I had another artist that was going from school to school playing a rock concert. And so that couldn't be done. But then when they do the rock concerts, they would actually talk about financial literacy, because this particular band had initially, when they first started, charged all of their instruments, all their equipment and gear to their credit cards, and were in extreme debt. And then they figure out this doesn't work. Not everybody becomes a rock star millionaire overnight. And basically they had a story about how they got out of debt and the value of being no matter much of a creative you are, how much value there is in getting your financials in order from the start. And so then we put them into workshops and things like that. So there was these other skills and these other passions that these artists had that they had to couple with their music. So we kind of made it entertainment. We made it remote, of course, virtual, but there was something we were offering other things, and we were able to keep these artists pretty much flush so that they could pay their rent, pay their mortgage, and do things like that. Of course, several of the artists have publishing, which I encourage all of the independent artists to make sure that they have their IP, intellectual property, but their music, licensed correctly. Basically, the PROs, the BMI ASCAPs, for example, publishers are self-publishing, the sound exchanges, that you're covered in every single way, because that money, especially when you can't tour, meant a lot. I have artists that are under the radar, people have never heard of, that I work with, that made triple digits in publishing, because then there was placement, and that could be done virtually because there were still other things that were going on, the commercials that were being played and so forth. So there's a lot of different ways to create other revenue streams for these artists. We had house concerts, online, VIP concerts, doing the music education, the workshops, as I mentioned, finding sponsors. And this is even post and pre-pandemic, is we encourage the bands to find initially local sponsors, a local pizza shop or whatever, to sponsor them. And you'll be surprised how much revenue you can generate from just getting local businesses that want you to win. And then when they see you go on a national tour, they're very proud and so forth. And then you can actually convert that. I've actually converted local sponsorships into national sponsorships. And that's another way to generate additional revenue streams. Sponsorships are actually bigger money, and usually you make more money on the sponsorships than you do on the show that you're touring on, just by ticket sales. So that's another way to go. The other thing is to be a gear ambassador, right? So if you play an instrument, guitar, drums, whatever, reach out to those that provide that gear, and you'd be surprised that they are pretty receptive to independent musicians. So the key is that a lot of them don't pay, but you get free gear, and that's just like getting paid. That's basically barter. And so you can actually save some money, which is basically payment in kind. And that's another way to generate revenue, is to reach out and be a gear, ambassador for some gear. I saw the 4D Fun lecture or segment that came on before, and they were talking about marrying up with technology. And that's always been something that there's huge opportunity for independent musicians. A lot of the technologies are trying to prove that they are the next big thing, and they're willing to provide, usually, like I think 4D said that they're going to do some free things for artists, create avatars for them and things like that. That's spectacular. This is nothing new. Back in 1999, when the whole digital revolution was happening, I happened to be with one of the biggest management companies in the world, and we had everything from Motley Crue, the Bee Gees, the Cranberries, Go-Go's, Blondie. We had 25 marquee artists, and we had every technology company coming to us wanting to pay and partner for these technologies. And then we also had artists that were under the radar, again, the independent musicians that weren't quite well known, but they were willing to try new technology, and then they could kind of parlay, the technology company could parlay that, show that it worked, and then go on to maybe a bigger artist, or even maybe get some good press from that artist. And we always got press from that. It was interesting because they were talked about the Travis Scott being inserted into that Fortnite. And it reminded me, back in 1999, of all places, I had a country artist named Tracy Lawrence, and we actually inserted him digitally into PBR, which is Professional Bull Rider, which was the top computer video game at the time. And he became one of the bull riders, and his music, his whole album was put into the game itself. And that was in 1999. So none of this stuff is new. So there's always technology out there that you can embrace that will enhance pay, give you some extra pay, some other revenue streams. The other thing to look at is fan subscriptions. I think, several artists are doing this, but sometimes it's overlooked. One of the things that's key is that if you can get 5,000 fans, for example, you can probably get anywhere from 5 to 10% of them to buy consistently. And if you're selling an average of, let's say, $15 to $20 a month, either through subscription for VIP, some kind of VIP extravaganza that you do with them, some one-on-one, some small group meets, or merchandise, specially packaged merchandise that's very unique and limited. You basically can, an artist can make like 6 figures on just that small of a group of artists. And I know many artists that are doing that they either have they have a combination of the fan subscriptions and the special events, and it worked great, especially during the pandemic, because they didn't have to go anywhere and they were doing these things online. But part of it, when the pandemic is over and pre-pandemic, they would actually show up and do house concerts, like to someone, like to a winner or to a special person who was into a drawing. They say, okay, I'm going to come into your backyard and do a concert. And of course they get paid for from everybody that's joining the virtual concert. And then the person that won would get the in-person concert. Or they'd usually stop on their tour and just go into the winner's backyard and just play. These are all ways that independent musicians can find ways to generate revenue and not be beholden to just music sales, music streaming revenues, which are like pretty much nothing, and then have to depend on tours when you can't do tours. But obviously when the tours come back, that'll help generate some more revenue again. It's really something that I think it's going to get more and more competitive. So I think you have to get more creative. And the good news is that there's a new technology coming out. There's new opportunities. Now, with some of the new technologies, of course, are the NFT. And in this case, I know that we're sponsored by right now. We have the music tokens, and these are the publishing of the future, right? So you're basically getting some sort of ownership and residuals of IP that can grow over time and generate revenue in real time. And that is basically what publishing was 20 years ago. That's what is a revenue generator and an ownership opportunity that actually is better tracked, because publishing has never been really well tracked. For example, one of my partners has written several #1 and top 10 hits, and he has a writing partner, and one is with BMI, the other is with ASCAP. And the royalty checks that they get every quarter are different. Now, of course, they use whoever got the lower one goes to ASCAP or BMI, whichever one it is, and say, hey, my partner got much more than I got for the same song. What's up? And they would basically negotiate a bigger payout. But that's the thing, is that with blockchain and the transparency of what we can do now digitally, there's lots of opportunity for additional revenue streams from this new technology. And I think at this point, that's one of the biggest opportunities for musicians, especially independent musicians, because you only need a certain size fan base to generate income that can sustain a livelihood. And I believe that really is one of the key cornerstones of where we're going in the future. So that's pretty much the rundown. I know that there's probably some more detail that I could give to each one, but we only have I'm supposed to be there for 15 minutes, so I'm kind of over right now. is there any questions? Anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask?
Hey, Mike, great talk. Yeah, I have a question. How do you pinpoint or like, let's say, analyze it? I know you work with a lot of different artists. How do you see which, I guess, revenue streams will work best for particular artists? How do you analyze that? Or is there like a formula or anything? Or
Yeah, what we do is we sit down. We actually have there was a little backstory. When I was with one of the biggest management companies in the world, the partner went and sat in the New York office for a year of DDB Needham, which is a big advertising agency. And because they know how to target an audience, they know how to, find like where the sweet spot is, right? And he brought it back and had a little bit of a formula from them on how they did that, and he applied it to the company. And then when I left the company and started For Entertainment back in 2002, I fine-tuned it more and got down to a one sheet where we look at the strengths and the weaknesses of the artist. Like, what are they bringing to the table? What is their target audience? So you look at who that artist is, what kind of music that they're playing, performing. What are the things that they bring to the table that can be added to it that can give us a benefit? So, for example, if you haven't, we had an artist that was in. I found out when I brought him on, he was very interested in the financial literacy aspect, right? So I said, okay, let's get you a financial literacy sponsor. You can sponsor shows, and we'll do some shows across the country at all the colleges and high schools, and just do this really jamming rock concert, because this guy's like a jamming guitarist. And and his strength was that he was very passionate about music, number one. Number two was his financial literacy, because he just had such a bad trip from overcharging his credit cards. So I took that and then married that into a sponsorship, which generated, lots of money for this artist, basically, to, where he could sustain a mortgage and a family and a band and tour. And it also enhanced his image for his publishing, because he had publishing, which he was sustaining, and he's got a lot of placement with his publishing and so forth. So the key is, what is that other passion? Some people have a passion for teaching, so then we look more at workshops. I have an artist that likes to go into some other creative areas, like art, for example. So we had the artist go like to China and to California and to other different places where there were museums, and basically hold workshops on looking at art and composing music based on the art.
Wow.
And museums and colleges are willing to pay for that good money to have something like that that's different. But that was his passion. Was he sees everything as musical notes.
Yeah.
And he's won 2 Grammys. He did a thing called Presidential Suite, because he saw presidential speeches as notes, and he did a whole album based on presidential speeches. And it was during the 2016 election, so it was like, big news. And of course we piggyback that onto the election, right? And but that was his strength, is that he could see so we said, okay, what things can we parlay that into so that you can generate a revenue stream that would interest somebody that might be outside just the regular music genre, bringing music to the museums, bringing music to the political arena, whatever. And it intrigues, it gets publicity, which then of course raises the branding, and then he's able to do other things and get other gigs because of the raising profile. So everybody has something that you can leverage that's natural. Like if you're trying to force somebody into doing something that's outside their scope just because, oh, well, that'll make revenue. Like you can't even make, for example, an artist, a salesman when they're selling their own merch, right? A lot of artists don't like to be at the merch table. So if they're not into it, now there's other artists that love being at the merch table, love hugging everybody, and that's a big thing. So then we play that up and have the after show merch tables extravaganza type of thing. So it just depends on the artist. So it's kind
of custom tailor made to the artist, basically. Okay.
Right. And we have a one sheet that actually talks about all these things, like what are your, what's your expertise, what are your passions, what is your target audience, things like that. And then we derive, where you should be, where your music should be directed, and where your passions should be directed, and how can we marry them to generate either revenue or publicity. Because everything we do, we look at it and say, does it generate some sort of publicity to increase your brand and burnish your brand? Is it bringing in revenue, or is and the best thing is when it does both.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so every artist has that. Every artist has
Okay.
something that's like that. So I can basically sit down with an artist and say, okay, let's have a talk here. Let's go through my sheet, and then we will generate some sort of revenue stream that you didn't think of.
Okay.
And it's
incredible.
and not to make it too impersonal, but I did the same thing with businesses, with corporations. Same thing.
Mhm.
What are they doing
Yeah.
already? What's their passion? And how can we generate revenue for something that they're already doing, but they're not taking advantage of the revenue that stream that is just sitting there waiting for them?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Incredible. And then we also have some other questions. We have from Joe Rotondi. He says, super cool. What's your vision for the frontier on music tech in the next 3 to 5 years?
So where are we going technology wise as it relates to music?
Yes.
Is that what we're looking for?
What is your
Yeah.
vision?
Well, I see this as that it's going to be more of the same. It's just going to be better, more realistic technology, better tools. But it'll be the same thing where the artist will be the first to jump on the new technology. There were always two things that drive technology, and I'm probably being over simplistic, but two things really drive technology. It's porn and music.
Okay.
And
all right.
and it's true.
And those also go together.
Yeah, right. But every technology that has really gone, like everything from the video cassette recorders to DVRs to the computer, all these things, those were always the two driving forces for that. So again, musicians and music will be the driving forces. Musicians, which is really kind of strange. It kind of was strange for me because I had started out on the tech side. And I saw these musicians just grabbing onto the technology, the new tech. Like when Mac came out, they were all over it, right? And everything was Mac.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, these musicians, I'd be the least expect to jump onto technology, which is nerd stuff. But it worked, and they were the most adamant. They were the biggest fans of the technology, and they just figured it out. They embraced it, and that's what's going to continue to happen. Is that the technology, I think that one of the things that will happen is that we have problems with right now is coordinating sound and visual through the internet, right? So that technology is going to get better, where these virtual concerts, and they might actually be, I think they eventually are going to get to hologram concerts.
Yeah.
Where you're going to be in your studio with, some kind of green screen hologram 3D thing, and you'll be able to do a concert on a stage someplace
for not even there.
When you're not there,
physically, your physical self is not there. Yeah.
Right. Because see, it's not monetarily or physically responsible for a lot of bands to hit every market, right? So there's a lot of markets that are skipped, but they don't have to skip those markets if they can be virtual, because it's much more accepting now. The new generation coming up is much more accepting of the virtual concert, right? Maybe 30 years ago, if they were doing that, I need to see the live band. It's not so much
and
anymore.
In some ways, almost the pandemic kind of speeded it up as well too, I guess. If there's a positive side to it, but because it forced everybody. So this is the world now. Yeah,
it increased a lot of the technologies. It gave people another idea that, hey, you know what, I can go to a concert that you can choose which concerts you're going to. They've gotten better virtually, and you can go to the ones that are live that make sense, and you don't have to travel all across the country because they're not in your market.
Okay, so we have about 3 more minutes. So we have another question from Anthony Bassi. He says, how do you feel major labels will adjust to still be an enticing option?
Okay, yeah, here's one of the big myths that, and I heard this every decade, right? I've been in for 3 decades, so every decade I hear this. The music companies are dinosaurs. We're going, all these new technologies and these new musicians are going to put them out of business. That will not happen. What will happen is exactly what happened with MySpace. All the independent artists got on MySpace, legitimized it, made it big, made it go viral, whatever. And then the big guys came in and took it over and kicked everybody out. Same thing happened with iTunes. I had one of the first artists that did they had this like free download promotion thing and just kicked butt. And she was an unknown artist, but her song was like just killer. But then as soon as I broke it open, they could not get the major labels to jump on this thing, right? We broke it open and showed that an unknown artist could just go viral. Next thing you know, all the major labels were knocking on the door and just booted all the independent artists. So they are banks. They will continue, even the stuff with the NFTs and the music tokens and all the virtual stuff that's going on. They will come back and they will basically push out all the independent musicians that are now pioneering this. This is a cycle. So as soon as they blow it out, just like Facebook, they took it over. Every platform they take over. They took over Spotify. They actually bought Spotify, right? They all invested in Spotify. So all of these platforms are started by independent musicians. They get legitimized. They get global, and then the majors take them over. This will happen every cycle for every new technology. So what happens is independent musicians, to get heard, we'll just have to come up with the next and jump on the next new technology.
We got to keep innovating. That's what we're here for.
Yes, but don't think the majors are going to go away. They're gonna that cycle is just keeps getting repeated, no matter what the new platform is.
Yeah. Money talks.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of smart guys there. Like people think they're stupid, but there's a lot of smart guys that are like you and me that know what's going on. We think that they're these dinosaurs. They know what's going on. Sometimes they just have to put out a lot of crap because that's what pays the bills. But they're still doing creative things. They're still doing innovative things or stealing innovative things. So I just don't underestimate the major labels.
No, never. All right, never underestimate. All right, guys, we got to stay focused. Well, yes. Thank you so much, Mike. And then, if you don't mind too, maybe I could hit you up too for some advice. I'll hit you up on Telegram, but thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. Anybody that wants to reach out to me, feel free to reach out to me. No problem.
All right. So give it up once again, Mike Lane.
Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it.